Oh my God, that was an insane session. Sick trails, gnarly conditions, and with winter just around the corner we can expect way more sessions just like that, which is why I'm about to show you guys a basic maintenance routine. Let's start this off by heading to the bike wash. To get things started, I soak my bike with either a hose pipe or a jet wash. Just make sure that if you use a jet wash, then you put it onto a really soft setting so you don't damage any of your bearings. This basically just helps to remove any large lumps of dirt before you apply the cleaner. I then apply my cleaner, which is muck off, so cover the whole bike and then you just leave it on there. It does its job. After about 4 minutes, give it a good scrub with the brush. This helps to move any of the dirt. Now it's been agitated, it will actually remove it. Give it a blast with the jet wash and then you're ready to head to the workshop. There we have it, your bike is nice and clean. It can seem quite a chore after a wet, cold day riding the trails, but it's definitely worth it because look how shiny it is. We are now finished in the bike wash area. We're going to head into the workshop, go over it and dial your setup in for the next session. When I put my bike in the work stand, I like to clamp it around the frame, never around the seat post, because if you have a dropper seat post, it puts a lot of tension on the post and can cause damage. Another thing just to take note of, I always put a towel or some kind of protection between the frame and the clamp because it just stops any unnecessary damage. As you can see, I've also had a wash. I'm changed from my muddy riding clothes. Whilst I was inside doing that, making a cup of tea to warm up, my bike was in the workshop, drip drying. My bike still looks a little bit dirty and it's still a bit damp. I like to work on it when it's nice and dry. So I'm going to grab a towel and give it a good wipe over now. Then it's ready to be maintained and dialed in for my next session. When it comes to maintaining my bike, I always start at the front of the bike. I'm going to start with the cockpit, the handlebar areas. The first thing I'm going to do is just inspect the grips, make sure that the bar ends aren't damaged and make sure I actually have bar ends. Check that if I'm running lock-ons, the bolt's tight. If you're not running lock-ons and you've been riding in really wet conditions, just check that you don't have throttle grip because if you drop in and you have, that will catch you out. Check your brake levers, inspect them for any damage. Just real basic safety checks, to be honest, because you don't want things like that to fail you in case you've had a crash and it's been damaged. Then check your handlebars, check the stem bolts are still tight, check that the stem is still straight. Just basic things so that when you get back on it next, it feels familiar, because when you're out riding in bad conditions like we was today, or you perhaps have a crash, things can move and things can change. The next component that I'm going to be checking out are the forks. I'm looking for any damages that might have occurred, such as cracks, dents, oil leaks. These things can happen, rocks can fly up, you might have had a crash, so just double check, have a look over, make sure none of that is happening. I'm then going to be thinking ahead to my next ride. What am I going to be riding? That means that I can set the fork up to the conditions or the trail or the type of riding that I'm going to be doing. It might just save me doing it there. I might need to fine tweak it on the trail, but get ahead now so you're prepared when you turn up to ride tomorrow. Moving on from the forks, I'm going to be checking out the wheels. The trail I was riding today was super rough, really rocky, so I'm going to be checking the spoke tensions, make sure none of them have came loose. It's also wise to inspect the tyres. I had a puncture actually this afternoon, so I'm just going to make sure that there's no further damage or rips in the tyre where the tube might be poking out, because again, that will catch me out tomorrow and be super annoying when you're miles away and you can't fix your bike. One more thing on the tyres, a bit like the forks, think what you're going to be riding next and either check your pressures to make sure they're how you'd run them, or adjust them. If you're riding jumps, you want them stiffer. If you're going to be riding some tech downhill, then let them down. But it's wise to just set it up as best you can in here before you hit the trail. My brakes were making an absolutely terrible sound by the end of the session on those last few clips that you saw. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to realign the pads with the disc, which is simple. All you have to do, undo the bolts which hold the disc brake caliper onto the bike, spin the wheel, lock the brake. With the brake locked, tighten them bolts up very slowly, and then when you spin the disc again, it should stop all of the sounds and it should have cleared all of the grit and the rubbish that you've collected today out of the way to stop that horrible noise. Moving on to the rear shock, and a bit like our tyre pressures and our front forks, I'm thinking ahead, so I'm going to set that rear shock up for what I'm going to be riding tomorrow. If I want to keep a similar setup, then I'm just going to check that it is what I want, check the rebound, check my compression, and check the air pressure so the bike feels super dialed when I get back on it tomorrow.
The trails today were super techy and super rocky, so I'm just going to check that my derailleur hasn't sustained any damage whilst I was sending it down some of those tracks. The first thing that I'm going to be looking out for is any bends in the derailleur cage. Make sure it's all straight. Then I'm going to make sure that it works okay. The bike still goes up through the gears. It was super muddy out there, so you might get some mud stuck in the cable somewhere, just causing a bit of damage. More than likely, if the gears are playing up, then you probably just need to adjust the tension of the cable, which is really simple. It can be done using the barrel adjuster, which is on the shifter. If you're still having problems, then you probably need to look at either replacing the cable because they stretch. It's just general wear and tear if you ride a lot. If not, look into getting your gears indexed, which is a bit more detailed. This is one of my favourite things to do when maintaining my bike, cleaning your drivetrain. So the first thing that I do is get a flat-headed screwdriver and any unnecessary gunk or grime or grease that's built up on your sprockets, on the derailleur wheels, scrape it off and wipe it away with a towel. The next thing I do is get my chain cleaner and spin the chain in that, gives it a good clean, gets all the grime and grit out from in between the links. Make sure that you wipe all the chain cleaner fluid off the chain and the sprockets with a towel before applying your lube. Apply the correct lube based on what you're riding, so if you're riding dry trails, use a dry lube, or a wet lube if you're riding wet trails like I was today and like I'm going to be for the next few months. Be careful not to put too much on, and the first time that I pedal the bike round I actually put the towel over it even with the lube on, because it just stops any flicking off and going onto your disc brakes and contaminating it, and it gives it a chance to just sink into the links, which is where it's most important. Finally, whilst you still have the chain lube out, go to your derailleur, anywhere there's a pivot point, put a tiny bit of lube because it will just make shifting a whole lot smoother. One check which I always do, and I think it's super important, is just to go over the whole bike and check every single bolt. These full suspension bikes, the e-bikes, in fact all mountain bikes have so many little bolts, and when you're riding bumpy things like stairs or rock gardens or just gnarly stuff, things shake themselves loose. Anywhere there's a bolt, just get an Allen key in there, give it a twist, see if it turns. If it doesn't, then it's good. If it's loose, then you've spotted it early and you're not going to lose the bolt or damage your bike. Final touches for me, I like to just go over the bike with silicone shine. It just makes it shine that little bit more, and it makes it look like you actually do care about your bike, because we all do. Remember, if you're riding an e-bike, charge the battery before your next ride, because there'll be nothing worse than getting to the bottom of the trail and your battery's flat.
In case you've been wondering whereabouts I'm filming this video, I'm staying at the Bike Park Lodge, which is the most insane mountain bike themed accommodation 5 minutes from Bike Park, Wales, and I love it because you've got the bike wash outside like what I used earlier. You have the workshop, which I'm in now. You can safely store up to 9 bikes in here securely using a heavy duty ground anchor which is welded to the container and the floor. There's a big secure chain provided, so all you need to do is bring a padlock. All the bikes are stored in stands so that they're not rubbing on each other or getting scratched overnight. There's high quality tools provided so that you can perform the maintenance routine which I've just taught you. Security cameras looking at the container, driveway and garden, keeping everything nice and safe. There's a unique keypad entry to the house which sleeps up to 9 people, so you and all of your mates can jump in here and spend the weekend here while you shred the bike park. There's an insane mountain bike vibe throughout the whole house. It's just insane. For a full house tour, click the card which has come up on the screen right now. If you fancy booking your stay, head over to www.bikeparklodge.co.uk. Upon checkout, apply the discount code TOM10 and that will save you 10% on your booking. On that note, that is the end of the video. I hope that you found it beneficial. If you have any further comments, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below and I will get back to you and hopefully help you. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video.